Hey, what's up, folks? How you doing? Happy Sunday to ya. Happy Sunday to ya. Can y'all hear me and see me okay? Ooh, I just had a pain right here. It's called getting older. Oh, that was weird. Gas bubble. My knees hurt says, what are y'all eating today? I had key lime pie yogurt for breakfast. It was way too sweet. I mean, it's not key lime pie yogurt. It's like key lime yogurt, but it tastes like key lime pie. I mean, it literally tasted like key lime pie. I was like, there's way too much sugar in this. You know, you don't eat sugar for a while or very much of it, and then you have some and you're like, oh my God, like everything is sweet. Kind of crazy. Anyway, Alan says, hi, Pete, good week. I hope you had a good week, Alan. Yeah, I had a pretty good week. What happened? I mean, just the huge kind of here in the studio and putting out videos and stuff. I put out a video for the Synergy Powerball module yesterday. And I'm going to be doing a few more for some of more of their high gain modules, like the Uberschall and the Ecstasy, and stuff like that. So just putting a few of those out for my friends over there that make the Synergy Preamp. What else happened? I put out that video for the Simplifier on Monday, I think, or Tuesday. That was an interesting little kind of amp simulator, but all analog device. Nice little device for somebody that wants an all pedalboard based rig and just kind of just set up one core kind of amp sound that sounds like basically like a clean or on the edge kind of Fender or something. You know, works quite well, I thought. And I actually ended up using it on a session, which is in the video, where I show like the solo that I cut with it and stuff. And so that's cool. Yeah. Lauren says, good morning. Things are getting better and better. That's good. I'm glad you're stoked, Lauren. Hope you're having a good day. Mike says he's putting a Thornbucker in his classic S with a push-pull and auto split in 4 position. Can't wait to play it. What do I think? Good move. Yeah, it splits great, and it balances with singles. I've come to realize more and more that it balances with singles almost better than any other humbucker that I've ever tried. And that's one of the magic things about it, is its versatility with other pickups. And even how, you know, because it's relatively low output, really. And even in comparison to, say, like a something like a Duncan 59, probably. It's going to balance better. Just the Alnico 5 magnet and those other pickups, they tend to have more of a, it's just the pickup comes off as louder, you know? So that's why it balances so well. And it's got a real warm tone to it still. It's not like it's weak and thin. It's got it's interesting. It's like, it's not too strong, but it's got a nice balanced voice to it that's not thin. So that it's cool. It's a really great little pickup. I don't know how much of it was an accident and how much was, you know, because really we started with that pickup with an SSV, which is an Alnico 5 and balanced coils and all that kind of PAF strength, and then we just, you know, tried different levels of mismatch of the wind, so the two coils aren't exactly the same, and then tried an Alnico 4, and that's really how we arrived at it. It's not more than that, but just doing those two things just makes for a pretty big difference in the sound. So it depends what you're looking for, you know. Yeah. Mute That Bozo says he'd rather like the jangly intro on the Dano through that Fireball. Yeah, it sounded really good, right? The clean on it, and somebody else said that, I hoped I wasn't crazy because I'm no expert in high watt amps, but I thought this kind of sounds to me at the lower gain settings like a high watt, what I remember of a high watt is sounding, just tough and punchy. And so that's kind of what it sounds like to me. And then at higher gain settings, and especially with the mid-thick kind of switch on, I thought this sounds like a Mesa more now to me now, like a Mark series, Mark 2C plus or something. Big, fat, and sort of thick mids and stuff. Also an amp that I'm not super familiar with, but I owned a Mark III, and I owned a couple of Mesa preamps and a 295, and I had a Caliber 50, and I had a dual rectifier. So I have had a bunch of Mesa amps over the years. It's just not something where I'm like, oh yeah, the difference between the Mark IIB and the 2C, the 2C Plus, and all this is exactly that. I couldn't tell you any of that stuff. Adam is there in the super duper chat, and he says, "Hey Pete, thinking Thornbuckers for my 2008 Les Paul, which is weight relieved. I've got a similar guitar, by the way, real light. It's severely weight relieved, I would say. What can I expect, or should I go for a plus in the bridge? I would probably go for the plus in the bridge if it's weight relieved. I might. I would think. It depends on what kind of sound you want. It's just a little less push. That's all. 50 or 53 millimeter spacing. You definitely want the 50 on the Les Paul, the narrower spacing. So 50 millimeter, and I would probably go plus in the bridge and the standard one in the neck. That's just what, if you're playing blues or you want it a little bit more vintage, if you then go for the regular one. If you want a bit more of a rock thing, you go for the one that's got a little bit more mids. This is really close, the difference between the two. Yeah. Greetings from Portugal, says Twiggy. What's up? Thanks for being here, man. You like the Barber Dirty Bomb? I've never really played a Barber pedal. It's like one of those lines of pedals that I've never really plugged in. So never really tried it. I have no idea what they sound like. I know they've got a compressor that people like. Scott White is musing whether or not Eddie Van Halen was approached to be the third guitar player on It Might Get Loud rather than Jack White. I've never heard that. I don't think so. But to me, it was always like they picked guys from three eras, like Jimmy Page is sort of the 70s, the Edge sort of 80s, and Jack White kind of late 90s, 2000s, modern. So I think it was more about that, about generational, which I liked that idea, I'd love if they'd make more, doing a sequel. I love that movie. I refer to it all the time. It's just a nice look at what happens when you put three musicians that don't necessarily know one another in a room together and have them all play guitar and talk. And it's just really cool. And I love I got interesting tidbits of knowledge about each of them we all kind of know more about Jimmy Page, I guess. But Edge and Jack White, I really upped my appreciation of Jack White. That's the main thing I walked away from that with. Chris Post is saying he played the PT15IR in cab yesterday, and it's amazing. Awesome, man. Thanks. Can I access the different sounds of cabs with the IRs through the 212 cab? No, the impulse response output, the direct output is the only place you'll hear that. So it's a standard tube amp other than the, on that DI out, then you've got the IRs, and you can, it's not like it'll change the sound through the speaker out. But I'm glad you tried it and you dug it. That's awesome. And I love it too. I do. Let's see here. I could watch Jimmy Page listen to records all day. I know, right? I was thinking, Hellface says that. I was thinking about the scene where he's listening to Link Ray. And whenever that song comes on, it's in the movie Pulp Fiction, and it came on the other day. And when the song comes on in the movie, whenever I hear that Link Ray song, glang, 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 I always think of Jimmy Page doing that and how he's like a kid listening to it, and how he's just, it's great, right? I mean, that kind of fly on the wall stuff, you feel like you're hanging out with them. I'll never hear that song the same again without picturing Jimmy Page kind of air guitaring to it. So cool. If you know, you've seen it. It's great. Greetings from Alaska, says Bluefire. One state I've never been to. I've only been to, so I grew up in Alberta, which is right next to Montana, and I've never been to Montana, which is nuts because I've been to 48 states except for Alaska and Montana. And I wasn't really that far from Alaska, I guess, in Alberta. Anyways, let's get up there sometime. Do you prefer your traditional pedalboard over cab sims like the Captor X, for example, or Helix pedalboards, and why? That's kind of multi-question. Do I prefer my traditional pedal board over cab sims? I don't have like a cab simulator on my pedal board. I wonder if you're referring to that thing that I reviewed this week, the simplifier from Humboldt, or Helix pedal boards. Okay, so traditional pedal board compared to modelers. If yes, I love the modelers actually, and I love my Helix HX, and I think they're great tools, and I can get the job done with one. I have done so. You know, I'll give you an example. Like I flew over to England when I first started doing the Classic Rock Show gig, and we did a television show, morning London television show, and they had a PT15 over there on a 112 cabinet that I borrowed, and I just brought my Helix HX effects for that, and I had to play a medley of 4 songs. It was like Jump and Freebird and like a couple other things, and I wanted a couple of certain effects for each thing. So I set up 3 scenes on the Helix HX effects. I could do that here, and then just take it with me, and that's all I had was that little HX effects pedal board. Flew over to London, and you know, with that in my suitcase, and hooked it up to the PT15 over there, and away I went, right? And it was totally cool. So I love that I can do that with those things. That said, I mean, if you listen to my pedal board in the Humboldt video this week, the sounds that I got on the video for the simplifier, that's me really using my pedal board, like with the H9s, and there was a lot of effects that I used, which, you know, later in the Humboldt video, I just used the Humboldt and that was it. So you got to hear both. But the whole point to me to the thing was integrating it with your pedals and kind of like how you can get, because it's got a stereo effects loop. And so I thought I'm really going to show that. I don't care that it is going to mask the tone of the pedal a little bit because there's going to be a ton of reverb and delay. I'm going to use a ton of reverb and delay because that's the fun thing about this thing, is that you can integrate it with your pedals, and you know, with your unique guitar rig, you can come up with your sound or whatever. So that's what I did, and so you can really hear my pedal board in the Humboldt video, actually, if you want to hear it, using the Mobius for lo-fi and the black hole reverb and the DD500 and the compressor, and what else did I use in it? I can't remember if I used any drives or not. I must have, but did I use the fuzz and something? Don't remember. Anyway, whatever. You get the point. Yet, my point was that I love doing that, like using my pedal board and all those sounds, and that's something that you're not going to get out of one box. That, I mean, I could get close, you know, if I had to go, okay, I'm going to go recreate all these sounds. Yes, I could go through and do it. Maybe it's not that you can't get the sound out of something like a Helix, because I think the Helix is great. Axe effects, different things. You can, but it's just really fun doing it with individual pedals, with the individual modular components, and kind of, you find out what shines about each individual thing, and then you can focus on that. And it's, you know, really neat. The one thing I haven't done with my board, because I have a Musicom Lab switcher on my board, is do computer editing with it. And that's one thing I really do love about like editing on a Helix, or, you know, hooking it up 4 cable to like the PT15, and then being able to do all the programming on the computer is so awesome. So I actually, when I made the sounds for the Humboldt video, I hooked up one of my H9s to my computer and used the computer editor to edit the H9, which is as anybody with an H9 knows, you got to use the phone app, or they make an iOS or a Mac app or Windows app, I guess. So you can hook it up and edit it on the computer too. It's the only way to do it. It's great. And I was thinking, God, if I could do this on my pedal board, like edit every single, like the H9s, program my Musicom, and program the Strymon pedals, I'd be so, like, if it was all hooked up, you know, via MIDI or whatever, and I could just do it. But you kind of can't, like with the pedal board, because it's like, that would be so much. You'd have to have some sort of, I guess you could, using a hub of some sort, but you'd have to have the, you know, like a whole bunch of cables going and stuff. It would be nuts. And that's one of the things I love about, once you experience editing effects on like a Helix or Axe effects and doing it on the computer editor, you never want to do it on the device. So when I'm programming my Musicom, it's a lot of steps kind of to get. It's great, but you know, it's a small unit, and it's kind of to get through to the different menu layers and stuff. It takes a while, and there's a lot of button pushing, naming presets. God, I hate naming. Don't you guys hate naming presets on things where you got to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, you know, like, and go through and each goddamn letter. Oh man, that takes forever. And I just hate that stuff, but I know I can do it on the computer. So I guess there's pluses and minuses to it all. Have you ever tried the Celestion EVH-IRs, says Gary Walker? They've definitely got a thing. I love to mix them with the standard greenbacks. I haven't really messed with them that much. I think I have them. I have so many IRs. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm not sure if I've got the Heritage Greenback ones. I don't know if they have a separate set of Heritage Greens in the EVH ones because it's the same speaker. But nice. Those Celestion IRs are great. Some other ones I've tried recently that I really love, I got to give some props, is the York IRs are really killer, man. They're amazing. Really detailed sounding, just kind of like, there's no bad ones in the bunch. They all sound really good to me, so it's cool. Yeah. That's an interesting question. This is something I was just thinking about this morning because it's how my brain works. Casper says, can you talk about the differences between a JCM 800 and a Plexi? You seem to favor Plexis. Well, I was just thinking about this morning, like, really. I do. A JCM 800 is a good serviceable amp for sure, and they can sound really good. One of the things that I learned from Dave Friedman is they kind of lower voltage on a lot of them. Like, they're not like as high voltage, and maybe some of what I like about the Plexi amps is that higher voltage, like even the mid 70s ones, like for instance that Steve Vai Jose I did the video on, has almost 500 volts on the plates. It's a pretty high voltage, and that was something that Dave says in that video, that he said Jose doesn't like the later 70s ones, like with the rocker switches, because they were going to lower voltage by then, like 370 or 380 on the plates or something like that. And whatever that means, he said Jose didn't like it. He thought it didn't sound good for his mods. So maybe it's something to do with that. But I kind of like the, yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, a Plexi is just a Plexi. It's different. There's no master volume, first of all. So turning it up, it's just got a certain sound when you don't, everything changes everything. So when you put something in the circuit, like a master, it affects things. I mean, just Dave explaining to me why an EQ is so much more active on something like any kind of amp that's got a master, as opposed to a Plexi where it seems to not quite do as much, was interesting. It all changes the sound. And so there's just something about the sound of I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like home. Like when I play a good 50-watt Plexi style amp, just there's a few different sounds. One thing that I've really discovered on them is that you can get this amazing clean thing going on the older amps. Like this one is a 72. And I lent this amp to David Grissom a while ago for a session. My jeans are in danger of becoming shorts. Look at that. Anyway, when I got the amp back from David, the tone controls were all set around 2 or 3, like really low on the tones. And the volumes were low too. And I thought, I wonder if that's the last setting you used it at. And I plugged it in and it sounded great. And the EQ is so lossy on a Plexi, especially the mids, is where that's the really important one to know is on a super lead style amp, is if you turn the mids way down, you lose gain. And if you're driving the volumes up high and you have the mid turned way down, it sounds weird to me. But if you have the volumes low and you're trying to get a cleaner thing, or maybe use it with pedals, the mids low can sound really good. So it's interesting with single coils and, the bass on 3 or 4 maybe, but the presence on like 3 and the treble on like 2 or 3, and then the mids down on like 2, you get this great clean thing. And then if you jumper the channels, like you can see, I've got a cable in this, a little dark, but blending in all of a sudden you get all this really interesting colors that you can get out of the amp. So that's one way to use it, is with the tones kind of set low, maybe jumpered, maybe not, but for some cleaner things, it's really sweet sounding and nice. And then if you want it to grind, then cranking up the volume past 4 or 5, then it sounds weird to me to all of a sudden have the mids that low. So that's where you turn the mids up for sure past half, if not like 3/4 the way up or all the way up. And when you do that, I saw a picture of Peter Stroud on his, here, I'll just find the picture because this was interesting for me to see. Maybe he's a guitar, he's got a tone always, and his setting on a Plexi kind of inspired me a little bit the other day, and sort of made me feel good about the way that I set my amps, just because I saw that it was like very similar to the way that I set my stuff up. Although I'm not finding the photo right now. Where the hell is it? Is that it? I don't think that's the same photo. Anyway, whatever. I don't want to bore you. I won't find it. But anyway, it had the mids cranked, had the bass on like 4, and the presence on like 4 or 5, and the treble up around 6, I think, which is really the way that I set it up when I do it, going for anything from AC/DC through to like the Van Halen kind of thing. So the Van Halen kind of thing, you want to crank everything. Sometimes you can turn the bass down and it helps tighten things up, but it's probably sounds most authentic just having it cranked. If the amp sounds too spitty, you can get this blocking distortion kind of thing. If you're running it that way, you can turn the presence down just a little bit and maybe the treble down just a little bit. Like there's a variation in there. Well, not a lot, but it's subtle, but it's cool. From 10 till 8 on the treble and the presence. So there's a few different ways to use it. I kind of went over them there in a loose fashion. Michael says, "Hey Pete, love the FM3 presets. What's your approach to creating as regards cabs and especially IRs? The sheer number of them is daunting." It is. I agree. And do you err to a brighter sound when creating them? I just err to what an actual cabinet sounds like to me. You know, a lot of people think I'm kind of bright, like that I dial in bright stuff. Maybe I'm just deaf, but the reality is I do the same thing everybody does in records and studios, pretty much, which is just use the cabinet with a 57 on it and then blend in another microphone. It's like 9 times out of 10, that's what guys do. So the way that it sounds is the way that, that's the way that those things sound when you do that. I don't know how else to describe it. But and then when you mix it in a mix, it sounds cool, because it's got all the cut and everything. So anyway, many times with the Axe effects, I find a lot of the IRs are darker, and a lot of people that use modelers and play, by themselves tend to go for darker sounds because it can be more pleasant. I don't think it's a bad thing when you're sitting there playing by yourself to have the warmer tones and more rolled off top end and stuff. There's not too many guys that made that work, like there's Eric Johnson, and he definitely made it work. And I guess Clapton and stuff. For certain sounds, it's cool, like to have the really darker thing going. The violin tone or whatever. But, I grew up on AC/DC and Van Halen, which is, pretty aggressive. So anyway, so with the Axe effects, I like for the FM3, I didn't use any custom IRs or anything. I just used what was in there. There's great ones in there. But here's the thing: if you like the sounds that I did in those presets, remember those cab sims and maybe just use them, for that. So like if you're like, oh yeah, I want a crunchy Marshall thing, I'll use that sim that Thorn guy used in the in the video on his Plexi preset. Just because in the real world, as far as miking cabs goes, we don't try 4 million different things, right? We just, there's where the 57 goes. I know it sounded good the last time, and then you just move it around a little bit. Yeah, that's basically the sound, and then you dial in the sound using the controls on the amp and your pedals or whatever. I saw a Bob Clearmountain video a while ago, my old friend Bob, where he was like talking about miking guitar amps, and I watched it to kind of see what he did, miking guitars. So I thought, I wonder how Bob approaches it. And he basically just says like, well, you sort of take a mic, like a 57's fine. You just kind of put it in the range of the speaker, like find where it sounds good in front, and that's how you do it. And I was like, okay, that's what I've always done too. It's not really like this thing where there's like 4 million different ways. There is 4 million different ways to do it. But what's the thing that most people do on records, I remember the Foo Fighters making a record and saying there was one that they did that was mostly recorded in their garage, I think, somebody's garage, which was probably exceptional, like built like a studio or something. But they, made it sound like it was kind of done sort of punk rock style or whatever. And they were like, yeah, we mainly just used a 57 on the guitars because that's what you do live. And you just kind of, figured why not use the live mic? But anyway, yeah, look for, just something that sounds real, not like, I don't know how else to describe it. There's a lot of them in the Axe effects that sound dark to me. that were too full, and then I'd need to EQ them later. So I actively, when I made the presets, I went for ones that didn't sound like that. I went for ones that sounded like when I mic a cab, you know. Yeah, that's it. They're in there. You just have to find them. Can you talk about a difference between, I guess I already answered that one, the JCM 800 and the Plexis, yeah. Any thoughts on stacked single coils? I can't help but notice Clapton's been using vintage noiseless for 20 years now, says Eric. A stack never sounds quite like a real single coil to me. It's part of why, like, a company like Shure doesn't do stacks, although they've experimented with them, but they've never released one, I don't think. Yeah, whatever sounds good, man. It's like, I know Tim Pierce really likes the DiMarzio, whatever they call the virtual vintage. I think they called them the virtual vintage. Now they call them Area 51 or something, or whatever those are called. He really likes those ones. I've kind of wanted to try them. I've asked Sir about the stacks, and he said the only problem with them is that, because he's listened to a bunch of different ones, he says they all kind of sound the same to me. Like, the different positions on the guitar sound more similar with the stacks. I think those ones, the technology in the DiMarzios is like where one coil is real weak, and then the other coil is making the majority of the sound, but then they've got another coil that's just got a few winds, and that's how they get the hum canceling. So it's still a stack, actually, but maybe a little closer to the real thing. So I don't really know. If I was going to try them because of Tim's recommendation, because I know Tim gets great sounds, and I've heard the guitars that he's got the pickups in, and they sound pretty good to me, I would probably try those DiMarzios. But my Surs are quiet, and they've got their SSC2 in it, and it's a different way to go about it, about the hum canceling thing. Chrissy says, have you ever had a time where you just thought, I want one amp and one guitar to do it all? Well, to be honest, that's really like when I have a PT100 or PT15 and then my signature guitar. That's my version of that. Like the guitar is sort of the one guitar that I could take to a gig and get the tones of a Les Paul and some Tele split Strat neck pretty close, and do a whole gig on to get a lot of sounds out of. So that's that's what you're seeing there. I hate the jack of all trades term, but that's kind of the closest thing to a jack of all trades to me, is my signature. And then the PT15 is really a similar thing too, where out of that one clean channel with a few different overdrive pedals to cop some different sounds, like the Jan Ray for the warmer Nashville-y tweedy thing or whatever. That's what I think of the Jan Ray, is like Nashville and tweed, and also the little Timmy pedal that I want to start maybe using one of these, because this thing sounds great. Little MXR Timmy. If you guys haven't tried this, this is nice. If you want those, it's talking about warm, kind of nice drive, that pleasant overdrive, that it's got a real smooth kind of top to it. That's really nice. But anyways, that thing on the clean channel, and then Plexi kind of, on the rhythm channel, and then, crank up the gain on the lead channel with a pedal for solos. That's my jack of all trades kind of rig. This is my signature gear to do it all, as you say. Did you see the Celebration Day live stream? Is that the Led Zeppelin, you mean, back in 2008? I've seen the show and heard it. I don't know. I don't think I watched it live. It's amazing how long ago that was now, that it's 12 years ago. It's just like the time. Yeah. Imagine that. Like, be like the equivalent of if it happened in 1968 and now it was 1980. We missed the 70s. I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. Strange. Yeah. I've used single coil stacks for years, says Terry. They have their own character, can be good, but it's a trade-off for sure. Yeah, like what do you hear, Terry? I wonder. Help us out, because I haven't used them actually that much. So I'd love to know what you think. As a power amp, Fryette PS2 or Synergy power amp? I don't know. You'd have to try it for your application. I have one of those Synergies here. They get a lot of hate online. The one here sounds good to me, but I haven't tried it in a setting where I'm really turning it up and trying to get it to. Some people, I think, maybe think they sound underpowered or something. I don't know what the complaints are. The tone is good. It sounds good to me. The PS2, just know it's designed to sound relatively flat, I think. I don't know. I mean, it might work great with. I know you got to try, That's the thing. As soon as I plug these things in, like for instance, when I did the Synergy video for the Powerball this week, I plugged the Synergy 1 into my PT15 effects return because I thought maybe I'll just use it with my PT15 power amp. And then I plugged it into their power amp, and their power amp was, for whatever reason, probably because it's designed with the modules, it had a bit more clarity to it. Like for that particular sound, it could be because my amp's only 15 watts or whatever, and then that one's more, 50 watts or whatever, and 6L6s, so just different. But it sounded more like, I think this sounds a bit more like, it sounded good through my amp. It sounded really good, but it's just the other one. As soon as you try it, And I don't know, if I haven't tried it, I can't, and I don't even know that that's what you're asking about using a power amp for. But so your particular application, if somebody hasn't tried it and I haven't tried it, I can't offer you an opinion, I guess. I would be remiss to offer an opinion because I don't feel like it's coming from I just, as soon as you try things, I have both those things right here though, so I could try it. I just would need to hook them up. I'm just not sure what you're talking about using it for, a preamp. Chris Post says, I don't have an AI audio interface, I guess, or studio monitors. I will probably get in the future, but do you think the PT15 makes sense for me now? Well, I mean, ultimately, it's a great tube amp. So if you want a great tube amp, I mean, even just playing it through a cabinet at super low volume sounds great. It's got a great master volume. So if you need a great 3-channel amp, it's a no-brainer. It's a killer amp. And then just the fact that later on it'll grow with you in ways that, the thing about it is that people started using it in ways that I hadn't even thought of. Like, for instance, somebody was like, it's got an auxiliary input, right? On the front, the headphone amp and the aux in. And somebody was like, I wonder if I could take the line out send on the back, run it to some effects, and then in stereo come back into the auxiliary input, and if I would hear that in the headphones. And I was like, I don't know, we never designed it to do that, but that's interesting, and I wonder if it would work. And then I just got the cables, which involved like 1/4 inch left and right female split thing to an 1/8 inch male, and I did what the guy asked, and it worked perfectly, and it sounded great. Like, so I had stereo effects in headphones, with the cab sim, and it sounded amazing for practicing. So there's different ways that you can use it. It's a really simple amp, like the design, really, but there's different ways that you can use it that are pretty cool, pretty fun, I think. So, what that is one thing that I have yet to try that I would love to try live, is maybe on a gig where it would work. It would make total sense if I was on a gig where it was mainly an in-ears kind of thing, and if I wasn't relying too much on a cabinet on stage, for the sound, maybe just for some feedback or whatever, but I'm not really hearing it. I would love to try the direct out on the back into my pedalboard post path, split to stereo, and then go to the front of house and the in-ears and stuff. So the effects would only be in the direct signal. They wouldn't be, coming out of the cabinet if I did have a cabinet on stage. Or maybe if I wasn't using no cabinet, then it doesn't make a difference. But then with the one head, just a simple little 15-watt head, my pedalboard, I could have a beautiful stereo kind of thing going on, and with the effects post, not needing to use the effects loop or anything like that on the amp at all. So I would like to try that at some point, see how that sounds. So there's all kinds of different ways you can use it, which is pretty cool. Let's see. Steve Kelly's saying, have you listened to Butch Walker's latest album? I haven't. Butch and I have become friends on Twitter. I like Butch. And my friend Why Not, who did the last Yoshi Nagabuchi tour on bass, plays bass with Butch. So I've got a couple connections to him. I've met Butch, actually. He was really funny, man. I remember playing a festival in 2001 with on the same bill as, I think it was a solo show for him. And he was amazing. It was great. I seem to remember him covering Bohemian Rhapsody at that gig with like a trio, and it was killer. I don't know how he did it, but anyways, do I know Butch? Yeah, that was I don't think we've ever actually met other than that time. But I remember he brought me on the bus and he showed me some other things. He was real high energy, and he had he's like, check out this video I just made with this guy, and he popped in I think it was a VHS tape because it was that long ago. But he showed me a video on the bus that he just produced with this guy, which was hilarious. It was kind of like a rock thing that was really funny. It's a long story, but that was cool, and he was really nice. I'd love to hang out with him a bit more because I know I think he's in Venice or close. Did you see that pedal show video on Volume? I didn't. I would like to see it. What did they talk about? That's from John Deshane. I wonder what they discussed. My knees hurt says he played through his Metal Zone last night, and I don't know why people don't like it. It sounds great to him. Hey, man, whatever sounds good. That's all that matters, you know? If it sounds good to you, then it is good, you know? That's all that matters. Is the finish wear above the neck pickup on your old Strat from sliding a pick under the pick guard? I don't know, because the guitar came like that. It had that on it. Because it had, let me see, it's a 1964. So what did it have? 1960. It was 34 years old or something when I got it, 33 years old. So, yeah, so it had been through the ringer. It's got some weird wear on it. It's right here. Actually, let's take a look at it. It's got this wear on the upper bout that's interesting. I wonder how that happened. You know, it was like that when I got it, as well as that. So the guy, that's probably just belt. It's got two places where it's got what looks like belt buckle rash, obviously. There and there. I've put a lot of wear on it, actually, in the time that I've had it. When I saw pictures of it, a lot of the arm wear, see where it's burned through, here. This was about 20% smaller. But hey, when I look at Philip Sace's guitar, the way it started out and the way it looks now, I think he just plays more than me. But yeah, I'm not sure how it got this. I mean, I would say maybe it's a pick, and also the neck. It's got that split. This is the one thing that really pisses me off on the guitar is the pick guard split right here, which you see a lot of them do, and that raises the neck pickup up. So that's why I've got it so low in the slot, because the whole thing is bubbling up right there. So that's kind of just how it is. But I do love this guitar. It's such a great guitar. It stays in tune so good, and it up the neck stays in tune. You can play, fairly complex chords and stuff all the way up above the 12th fret, and it still sounds really good and in tune. And then the bridge just kind of stays in tune quite good for being, and I've got it set up pretty Jeff Beckish with it really at a steep angle. And I do love this guitar. It's one of those guitars that it's probably one of my best sounding guitars. Just the acoustic tone of it is so balanced and really comes through the pickups. And when I don't play it for a while and then I pick it up, it's just like, oh yeah, it's like an old friend that I missed. It's a really nice guitar. It's a good one. What else we got here? Let's see here. Looking for another question. I'm just going to go to the end of the chat there. Burst on that Strat looks cool. Yeah, it's a unique one. It's definitely got the guitar's interesting, right? Because it's a real transition guitar with one more look at it. The burst on it is real solidly 64, and with the mint guard and all that stuff. But then the neck is super duper transitional with the pearl dots and the logo in the weird place, where I would just love to know the story of when they started putting the logo on the guitars like this, in the weird place for a very short period of time. I would love to know if it was one employee that was doing it, that was well, Leo's not here anymore and the company's being sold and it's all going to finalize next month, and I've always wanted to put the logos here, so I'm just going to do it. And then the guitars went out the door like that. Who the hell decided to put it there? It's so wacky, but I kind of love it for that reason, because it's just in that weird place. And it's, truth be told, I mean, I prefer the other way, but this makes it unique and kind of cool. And it definitely, when you see one, that guitar was made from October to, October 1964 to January 1965. You just know instantly when the guitar comes from. It's kind of cool. So anyway, did I miss somebody's super chat? You guys are talking about did I miss? Here, I'm gonna go through and see if I missed somebody's super chat. Just seeing some of what people are saying. SD Design. Did I miss you there? I see you now. Favorite heavy bands? I like Rage Against the Machine. I love Rage Against the Machine. You know what my favorite metal band is right now? Is Gojira. I love Gojira. God, that last album that they did is moving, man. It's like their mother passed away because there's two brothers in the band, and then that last record they did, I think it came out 2016. I think that's the latest one. And the videos for it, it's exceptional, man. It's like really moving music. It's really moving emotional music, but it's heavy and beautiful. It's heavy and beautiful, which is a great combo for me because I like melody and I like, I'm not really like a aggressive for, that's not really like my thing at all. But if it's dark and what's the band? Opeth? I met that fella, the guitar player from that band a while ago, and they've got a heavy melodic thing going on as well. That's really cool. He's so nice. I met that guy at I'm totally spacing on his name now, which sucks. I wish I could remember his name. He was so nice at Guitar Summit in Germany. He plays PRS, and anyway, we had a couple long chats, and he was really, really nice, and I'd like to chat with him more because he was such a cool guy. But anyway, love Gojira, so that's my favorite heavy band that I've heard as of late. But I love Rage Against the Machine. I mean, one of the craziest shows I've ever seen was a Rage Against the Machine show, and it was a festival. It was at the old Irvine Meadows Amphitheater in Orange County, and it was like other bands were playing that day. I can't remember who. It was maybe like, I mean, that's the thing. I remember Rage because I remember Hole played. That was before I ever knew Courtney or worked with her. Who else was it? Maybe Beck or I can't remember, but it was a bunch of bands, a karaoke thing. And then Rage Against the Machine played, and it was like, holy shit! Like the energy and the, just the, these huge like mosh pits and the cyclical thing. And there was two like bonfires that started out on the lawn, and it was just like fires going and stuff, and everybody it was like this tribal thing. I don't know. I love it when a crowd is super tribal. When it turns into that energy. Joe Harvey says he needs help. He says, chat, can anyone help me? What's up, dude? I need help to get a laptop set up to record. Joe, there's so much info, honestly, on, like, if you're having a particular problem, there's so much that you can find on YouTube or with whatever DAW you use or interface these days where somebody can probably help you. But if you can type your question in the chat, let's see if we can help them out. I'll help you if I can. Toby Ellis says that he likes Joe Barden Blade singles. I played the Danny Gatton telly a little bit, and so that's the only time I've ever tried a Barden pickup. I like that guitar. It's got the little diamond inlays. Kind of neat, Gold. Yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Mel O'Brien says he gigs with 2 amps, a 95 PD Classic 20. What a sleeper amp that is. I used to work in a music store that sold those. And the Classic 20 is not like the Classic 30. The Classic 20 was a little ripping little tone machine. It sounded awesome. So if you ever see one, God, what a great lead sound. Such a cool little amp. They just sounded really good. And then he's got a 65 box AC15. That's a cool amp. I can run them together separately. Cool rig, dude. Unique. I like it. Halface says Grohl's Garage has a vintage Neve board. Yeah, that was the... I think the record I was mentioning was before it was when he still had a place in Virginia or something, or he lived out by DC, I think, and that's where they made the record I was referring to. But yeah, now his studio's got the Neve from Sound City. That's right. Okay. Let's see here. Have I tried the Friedman JJ Jr.? No, I was talking to Dave yesterday about it, though. I guess they sold 1 million of those things. He said it was very successful. Have I heard the new Friedman Jakey Lee amp? A little bit. I heard Jake play it at the Whiskey. Sounded really good. I know there's a video video that Michael Nielsen put out on it. So I was going to check that out. Something else Dave mentioned the video was out for that, and he liked it quite a bit. Let's see here. What about bands like Sonic Youth Guitar Approach? I like Sonic Youth. I mean, I like, yeah, it's cool. I mean, 90s, man, you know, I love just, you know, any kind of, the guitar to me is such a rebel instrument that any kind of noise alternative, interesting approach to it is if it's good, you know, and good is like this weird intangible. But did anybody see Kim Gordon on the with Nirvana at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction? Is that what it was? I think. And you know, when they had like Joan Jett and St. Vincent, right? Annie, I think is her name. And Lord, you know, I think it was Lord, right? Was it? I think so. All singing. Once again, the one I remember, not that they weren't all great, because they all did a commendable job, but was Kim Gordon, which was like, oh my God, there it is. That's the 90s. When you see her singing with Nirvana, she captured the spirit. Go check it out. Kim Gordon, Nirvana, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Just watch it. It's punk rock and it's awesome. That's what I love. You know, that whole, they captured it, and you can see, I love the kind of the look on Pat Smear's face when they're playing, and she was so great at singing. It was like, yeah, that's a band actually. Like that, they could be a band. I don't know. It was just awesome. So that was like, oh my God, if you almost forget, like, oh, there it is. That's the 90s. That was great, you know. And I don't know. It was a great thing to see. Man, I miss the 90s. Some great things about the 90s. Anybody else love that Jeff Buckley show from the Metro in Chicago that's that they filmed, which is like one of the probably best sounding like live performances that, you know, you can find of him. I can watch that. I put it on and I get lost, you know, if you want to see some great guitar playing, not to mention singing, of course, the songs, but that's another great, it makes me miss the 90s, like hard when I see that. It's like, God, I lived through this, and I was playing in bands, and I started touring then, and I appreciate it, but I was like not appreciative enough of like how great it was. There was some great stuff going on right then. But anyway, that Buckley show, if you haven't seen that, do yourself a favor and just Jeff Buckley, Chicago, it'll pop up, and it's amazing. It's so amazing. But Brendan is up there in the top chat. He says, is there a good reason to use Thornbucker Plus in the bridge for mostly clean playing on a mahogany guitar with a maple top? Well, I mean, it's a great pickup for clean and for dirty. It's the clean tone is fantastic. A lot of, you know, I think Mateus is getting his own pickup maybe with Sir, but he's used the Thornbucker in his guitars forever. You know, that's what came in his signature models in the bridge. And he even has a video, I think, that he did where it says Thornbucker, like, and talking about it, playing all this amazing shit that he does, you know, but he's mainly, you know, playing clean with that pickup, and you can really hear it there if you want to hear what it sounds like. Mind you, that's in his Strat. You're saying a mahogany guitar with a maple top. Okay, so in a mahogany guitar with a maple top with a brighter neck pickup, which is what the Thornbucker is in the neck, the beautiful thing is you can get this clarity out of the neck position on a Les Paul that you might not be accustomed to unless you've played a great old one. But that's what we designed it to do, was clarity on the neck pickup with the Alnico 5 magnet and real low winds, like 7.2 or 3K. And then on the bridge pickup with the Alnico 4, it's a little bit warmer. So with a nice, you know, it's not a dark pickup at all. It's just balanced with a sweet top end. So that's the reason. If you want a balanced pickup with a sweet top end that doesn't kick the crap out of the front of the amp and isn't like a ton louder than your single coils, you know, you can switch from a Telly to a Les Paul with Thornbuckers in it, and it doesn't, you don't need to redial the amp in. You can just kind of tweak the guitar with the volume controls a little bit and stuff, and it's not like some other world of sound, you know. So hopefully that answers your question. I hope so. Alex B is up there in the super duper chat. He says up top, thanks for doing that, you guys. I appreciate it. He says, hey Pete, what drive pedals would you suggest for the Bella in general? Well, we should just get a drive similar to the fat saturated hedgehog tones. Well, that Gladio preamp that I tried is pretty great. Did you see the video for the Gladio? That would be pretty hedgehoggy, I would think. I didn't try it through the hedgehog, but through the Bella, it should be pretty damn close. It aims to capture the sounds of two different Dumble circuits. One of them is a little bit more open and maybe like less compressed sounding, and then the other one's a little bit more saturated. So you could check out the Gladio, see if you think that that's up your alley. I mean, something like for like maybe a little bit more pedestrian would be like the Zen Drive. Not pedestrian in tone. It's a really good sounding pedal. So the Zen Drive is a good Dumply pedal. What it says is the Symbol was another one from Mad Professor. Don't have as much of a memory of what those guys sound like. The Dude is another one from Rocket that you could try. I think all those would sound good. The thing is with the Bella, the bright switch on it has got 3 positions, so it's real tunable with the pedals. So you're not going to have a hard time. It's a real pedal friendly amp. That's really what they made it for. So, but I would say, yeah, those few pedals I just mentioned would all be good choices to check out. The Dude maybe being the tightest, highest gain of them, the most sort of crossover with like, could it sound like a Marshall, but yet it's whereas the Gladio never sounds like a Marshall to me. It's its own thing, and definitely more like that Dumble thing, but really good. When I listen to the sounds, I'm really happy with the tones that I got out of it. I mean, even the clean sound it's not totally clean, but the sound that I got out of my Princeton with the Gladio in front on the rhythm part, a lot of people so I played the kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan-ish riff in the on my Strat neck pickup, and I love that tone that came out of the Gladio. So for that sound. So what else we got here? Chase Bliss Mark II preamp, pretty dang awesome, says T-Mitz. Is that the one with the big sliders? The Chase Bliss with all the sliders that are? I haven't tried that. Looks cool though. I saw it at NAMM and didn't really get to hear it. The Barber Burn unit, somebody is suggesting. Haven't tried that one. Great Dumble vibe. Left side Robin Ford, right side Sunny Landreth Gladio, says BV Ninja. That's correct. That's what the one side is, kind of more the Robin Ford thing, and the right side is the Sunny Landreth. And the right side is a little darker and a little bit more saturated and compressed and stuff, and then the left side has a little bit more open thing. But with the compression switch, it can also get a little more compressed. So there's a lot going on there. Krager says, "Hey Pete, thanks for sharing all your knowledge. I don't know much, man. I just know about a very specific about pedals and guitars. And other than that, I can talk sushi. I like sushi a lot. No, I appreciate it. Thanks, man. Any recommendations on a pedalboard friendly cab sim? Well, the first one that comes to mind is the 2 Notes, the one that goes on the pedalboard, Torpedo Cab M, I think it's called. So it's quite small for pedal based one. Do they make that big a difference if going direct to an interface? Well, what are you using for a load and stuff? Or are you using pedals for preamps? It depends on the whole combination of things, to be honest. But pedalboard friendly cab sim, an Iridium from Strymon can be just a cab sim too. So that's kind of cool. For $3.99, it's an amp sim, cab sim, but you could turn off the amp sim if you want to use it with a real amp. So that's another option. That there's a Nuneber has one. That's like small, the size of a Phase 90. There's, if you want a real cheap one, there's the Moore one, which is pretty cool. A Radar, shorter IRs in there, but it's pretty cool. If you want an analog one, there's the one I tried this week, the little Humboldt one, but it's more like an amp sim too. I don't think you can disable the amp sims in it. Of course, there's the Sir Ace, really nice for a small analog one with simple knobs. So there's a few options. If you want a nice IR one, I think it's hard to beat the Torpedo Cab M. It's got a ton of memory and you can load different ones up to 200 millisecond IRs and all that. So it's really good for a pedalboard based one. Tough to beat that one. Brendan says, Pete, to clarify, I'm asking Thornbucker Plus versus normal Thornbucker and Bridge for mostly clean with a mahogany body maple top guitar. I think you'd be fine with the regular model. If you want a little bit more clarity, because it's going to be ever so slightly more output and mids with the Plus. which is what we were going for with it. Just a little bit more rock and roll push. But if you're mainly playing clean and, you know, you want to turn up the gain on your amp a bit and get a bit more out of it, you know, if you want to kind of lower output guitar cleans, probably go with the regular one. You know, it's 8.4K, you know, it's a PAF strength. Just the Alnico 4 makes it a little bit on the, it's a little bit less push than something like a Duncan 59 or something would be. And so it's going to keep your amp cleaner. So, yeah. Renan saying, Sir Alt T, if you have experience with it, I do. I have one. Would you give me your pros and cons of that guitar? I'm about to pull the trigger on a used one. They're great guitar. It's a great rhythm guitar to me. You know, it's got medium-sized frets and a medium neck and stuff. I don't think it's a lead shredder or anything like that, but great. It's got a great air to it because it's got the, you know, hollow thing going on. And with Thornbuckers, it's just a really, really good sounding for, you know, country or rock and roll or any kind of like, I mean, sure, you could put heavy overdrive with it too, but to me, the sort of the ash body and all that, it sort of screams like it's got air to it and a bit of jangle and, you know, for a guitar with humbuckers, real versatile with the humbuckers, those Thornbuckers and the switch. Somebody's asking what's the first riff I ever learned. Got a feeling inside. That's the first song I ever learned. And I was hooked. It's like, I can play it. It sounds like it. I'm in. Let's do this. Show me more. Yeah. Greetings from Australia, says Bugsy Bunny. What's up? How are you? Good to have you here. Let's see. Hello, everyone in the chat, says Harley. What's up, all you folks? It's good to have you. 342 people online. All you guitar nerds. Phase 190 or 45. I've always been partial to the 90. 45 is cool, but it always strikes me as a little bit, that's T-Mitts, it always strikes me as a little bit just kind of like, oh, I wish I had a little more of the phase effect. And then the 100 always seems a little too whooshy or whatever to me. And then the 90 is just perfect 4-stage phasing or whatever. I think the 45 is 2-stage, right? I could be wrong about this. I think the 100 adds more stages. You know, it's like 2 versus 6 or something like that, right? Am I wrong? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. The 90 just sounds great. The classic 4-stage phasing, you know, awesome. Loot89 is up there in the top super duper chat situations. He says, so I don't have an EQ and was looking at the Boss GE7, but there seems to be quite a bit of chatter that they are noisy. One thing that adds gain, it's adding a gain stage with the output is going to add a little bit of noise. That stuff doesn't really bother me. Noisy depends on what you're running into. It's not, you're not going to notice it if it's a cleaner amp, and if you're just looking for a little bit of push out of it. If it's a real high gain amp, you might notice the noise more. So just, you know, it depends. What are you running it into? If it's anything AC30 or, you know, it's Marshall Plexi or something or less, you know, you're not going to notice the noise. If it's a dual rectifier or a Soldano or something, you might notice the noise. So just weigh that, knowing it. Great pedal, though. It's a sleeper, classic. Byron, I got a video, by the way, coming out on an EQ, the Source Audio one. So I'm excited to get onto that, and they've been waiting for it for a while, so I got to get that done. Cool videos coming this week. I got a video coming for this Polaron Phaser, which is interesting. It's an envelope-sensitive phaser that goes all the way up to like 12 or 16 stages of phasing. I think it's got a switch, speaking of 4 versus 6 versus 2. So you can easily cop the sound of different phasers with them. It's a nice pedal from Seymour Duncan. Pete, have you used the Boss Es8 Switcher? I'm familiar with it. Byron K is asking that. I think it's quite good. Dave Friedman really likes them for his builds. Sounds good. You can order the pedals and all that stuff. I'm a fan of Boss. I think they make great stuff. What's not to like? What's not to like? Okay. I've never built one, but I think that I built a pedalboard with one. Excuse me. I never built a board with one or had a board. You know, I've used Musicom exclusively for my boards for about 10 years. But yeah, Teammate says he likes to sit at the bar and have the sushi chef surprise him. He likes the omakase. I do too. Man, I used to go to Nozawa for the world's ultimate omakase. Sit there and just don't think, just eat and all that. Loved it. Edward Van Halen would like to know what's in my current fly rig. I don't think that's the Edward Van Halen. What's in my current fly rig? Well, the last time I flew was mainly all last year when I was flying and doing stuff. I mentioned I was using an HX effects. So I was lucky enough. Everything I flew for last year was in the UK or Europe, clinics as well as Asia. So with the clinics, they had an amp on hand, and then I would fly with my effects, which was the HX effects. So it was tiny, work great for what I was doing. Both for that, I mentioned like I did that TV show in the UK, and then my clinics, I had patches set up for that. So I mean, no worries with that thing. I threw it in my suitcase, and I had a little bag for it that just kind of protected it, and another bag for my cables, and I would show up with that. And that's what I used. It was cool. Worked good. Is the Telecaster, with it being so bright, the perfect guitar for super hot, overwound humbuckers and thick Les Pauly rock tones? Well, some people put humbuckers in tellies and dig them. I mean, it's not the guitar being bright isn't like necessarily. I mean, there's dark tellies or darker. If you've got an older body telly with a rosewood board, it's going to be as dark as anything that's got a, it's not dark, but just kind of middle of the road sounding. I don't. Part of the brightness of the guitar. And by the way, I don't think the neck pickup is bright on a telly. The bridge pickup can be, for sure. If it's a lower output telly bridge pickup and it's it's got that angle on it and stuff, but a Strat's bright too in the bridge, so. Is it the perfect guitar for super hot, overwound humbuckers? For overwound hot humbuckers, it depends what you're doing. Like something like my Explorer, which is a big old slab of mahogany, sounds pretty muddy with overwound humbuckers, all that mahogany. When I think back to the 80s and overwound hot pickups, it was like the maple guitars were the ones that seemed, I can remember people having all maple, like maple body. I think some of the Kramers were maple, like and I can remember other guitars being maple. Maple neck bolt on to a maple body is like pretty bright. And then if you put a hot pickup in there, it can kind of work for like some things, So it's, if you put them in the real hot pickups, one thing is that if you use a ceramic magnet pickup real hot, like say Gibson Dirty Fingers that's the John Sykes thing, Les Paul custom with the Gibson Dirty Fingers, that worked, or like Tony Iommi or something. I don't know. Like if you've got a hot pickup in a mahogany guitar, maybe make it a ceramic magnet. That can work, for some tones. Judas Priest, I guess, when I think about like Glenn Tipton and stuff, it was probably hot pickups. I don't know that for sure. I wonder what was in that SG that Glenn used. I don't know, for all those years. But also you had KK with the V and all that. And then they were using treble boosters into the bass input of a Marshall. Cool. Was the sound. Vincent Moretti is up in the top chat. What's up, dude? He says, with everything going on, I'm having a hard time allowing myself to play and enjoy playing, which is my own hang-up. But I'm wondering how you're able to turn it all off and enjoy playing. Yeah, well, that's the magic of playing for me, is it's like, I know what you mean. It's almost like a guilty pleasure at some point. If you're like dealing with a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world today and stuff, and then you feel like, oh, am I being lazy by not thinking about, but you're going to go crazy if you just like think about problems all the time and the state of the world and stuff like that. So it's great to have the escape of playing guitar, right? Writing music. And that's the beauty of playing guitar for me, was always like, if I had a great tone going and I picked it up and I was in a bad mood or whatever, you play a gig and you're not in a good mood when you get there or whatever, something happens, and then you start to play and you just forget about all that. And it completely recalibrates your thinking, because it requires 100% of your facility and your attention, I think, to play, to really be in it. Maybe that's what you're saying, is you're having trouble getting into it. I don't feel bad about it. I mean, life's not, it's like, if you shouldn't, the things that you enjoy, we all need that. Life's not supposed to be, all pain and suffering, I don't think, is it? It's like, if you can, I know what you mean, but it's like those little escapes. You got to give yourself that, whether it's reading a book or because we're all under so much friggin' stress these days, right? Like with some people more than others, you know. But it's like allow yourself the chance to recalibrate and stuff, and then because what good are you if you're like super stressed out and then not effective in the other areas of your life, like for your family or at your job, or you know, or maybe you don't have a job because you lost your job with all the stuff that's going on or something. How can you be effective like trying to find another one if you're not balanced and feeling like you're enjoying anything, right? So maybe guitar will bring that to you, like a little more balance, and you know, even just 20 minutes a day or something to kind of go, oh yeah, I still love this, like, and there'll be better times or whatever, you know what I mean? Like where I can just, I remember now, this is, you know, it's a great thing because I don't feel. Somebody said in the chat earlier, they said he's still excited, and I am. You know, I still. This is the great thing about guitar and music is for me, it's the same feeling I always had. It never changes. I hope it doesn't. I mean, it ebbs and flows, I guess, but I still get really excited about the same old, you know. Oh, let's try this pedal into whatever. Wow, the greenback. I wonder what the 55 hertz sounds like compared to the 75. You know, all that stuff. So. New speaker, a new tube, you know, we were talking about it. There's a new JJ tube that's out. It's like, oh yeah, because I guess there's problems with the supply of Chinese 12X7s right now, which is a nightmare for amp manufacturers. But I was telling Dave Friedman yesterday, I go, this is a new JJ. And he's like, which one? The long plate? And I go, no. There's a fourth one now. And it's a clone of the old Tesla frame grid, whatever. And you know, and then we geeked out for the next 15 minutes on finding it. He found it. And he's like, whoa, I got to give these a try, you know. We still get excited about this crap. So anyways, yeah. What video cam is on the tripod? This is my main camera that I use, which isn't anything special and it's not that great, but it does the job. It's durable, and it's a looks like it's coming out of the. It didn't fall. I had it up so high. It's coming out of the clip there. This is a camera I bought about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So it's an AX33 or something, Sony, which is the lowest kind of 4K camera that they had. So most of what you see me do is one of these. Sometimes it's iPhone these days, and sometimes it's a Sony DSLR A6000, which is old and overheats after 15 minutes, but looks great. Actually, the video looks better on that camera than the one this can do. But this is fine. You know, and it just it doesn't shut off after 15 minutes, and it just works. It's a little bit more hardy, I don't know, and it's fine, you know. I figure for YouTube demos. Next one up was another couple $100, and I just didn't want to, you know, what's going on with the clip on it though. Here, I gotta figure out I feel like it worries me a little bit. I have another tripod, maybe. It's, you know, everything I have is budget, really, for the video crap. Like this is all the equivalent of, you know, getting a PRS SE or something. Not that it makes it sound bad. I don't mean the PRS SE is fine, but this tripod was $35. You know, I spend the bare minimum to get a decent result out of it for the video, and then I put all my resources into the audio. That's the truth. Yeah. I still get excited about guitar just as much as I did when I started in '87, says T-Mits. Yeah, it's awesome. It's good. Braxall says, would you remove hand-wired Texas Specials out of Fender Custom Shop Strat and put in Josefina hand-wired Fat 60s in its place? I don't know, because I haven't tried them, but the fun is the experimenting. So yeah, I probably would. Just because I would want to know the difference and if it was better. You know, I remember getting in a car accident once in I should tell Blues that. I was on my way to get the new Blues Saraceno, because I know now, the Blues Saraceno Trembucker when it came out. And I was so excited after school to drive, and I ended up getting rear-ended on the way to the guitar store to buy the pickup. You know, I don't remember thinking about it. I was probably like distracted driving or whatever. I had to brake fast, and somebody hit me. That sucked. It's the second time I'd gotten rear-ended in not very long. But anyways, you know, excited to go to the guitar store and buy a pickup and hear what it sounded like. Couldn't wait to get out of school to go buy the pickup. I remember that. It's all about the journey. Hey, Pete, Trevor here. String gauge preference. Well, you're saying you use 9 to 42. I'm at 9.5 to 44. And I think that's good for me for now. I find that any lighter gets a little. I like it for the Van Halen thing. Truth be told, to really truthfully capture that sound, you have to use 9 to 40 or 9 to 42 at the minimum. But you can really get it's the playing and the speed that he bends at sometimes, and the facility and stuff that you need when you change to the right string gauge and set the guitar up in E flat. It's like, oh, that's just easier to play, and it sort of sounds more like it. Like, so for that thing, I like 9 to 40 or 9 to 42, but 9.5 to 44 is a nice balance for me overall. 10s were starting to feel a little heavy for me. My hands are not the strongest. So Mike Jones says, how much more can an expensive pickup be? They're all just copper wire around a magnet. Is the cost of the magnet like a few $100? Well, keep in mind the cost of any product isn't just the cost of the parts, right? Because there's all the, your employees and marketing and packaging, and yes, the raw materials, labor. So it's all those things, and different companies are set up in different ways, and that affects the cost of a pickup, right? Economy of scale. If it's one guy in a garage making one versus, a company, sometimes the company can, because their machinery and stuff can afford to make things for less. Sometimes it just depends, I think when you say how much more expensive can a pickup be, I mean, if you look at the different Duncans, you'll look at the ones that are more like they're sort of made on the line models, whatever that means or whatever, but like a 59 or a JB standard ones. And then they're more custom shop models that cost more money because it's probably one person doing it and spending a bit more time. Maybe they're aged and all that stuff. So, all those things, if it takes another 3 hours to make, that gets factored into the price of the pickup, or a more expensive magnet. Or magnets are not all the same. That is true. Like, for instance, John talked about it on my show here a while ago when he was on John Serve, saying like my magnets are different. I get them from somebody and it costs, he was explaining that, he discovered something through experimenting with Landau and, magnets and things like that. And he came across a certain thing that he discovered, and he was like, oh, and so there's a certain magnet he's very particular about in his single coils for that reason. A true Alnico 5, I think he calls them. That's exactly what Fender was doing in the 60s. Things changed at some point, and he does it the way that they used to do it. So it can be more money, and they're not all created equal. Yeah. Robert says that due to COVID, my apartment repairs, we delayed, and my guitars were all in storage for 3 months. Now the guitars are out of storage. Just having them in the room puts me in a better mood. That's good, man. That's nice. I like it. Yeah. BC Rich says sometimes the low-end factory issue pickups sound a lot better than you'd expect. I have 2 low-end guitar I've kept stock since the El Cheapo pickups are a lot better than I expected. Yeah, whatever sounds good, man, honestly. Whatever sounds good. If it sounds good, you don't need to change it, Yeah. Mr. DeHaan says that he used a fractal at a full in-ear rehearsal, and it sounds great. Been watching your fractal clips. Thanks, all the best. That's cool. From Holland, the Fellowship of Acoustics. That's a beautiful store. I made a little video on. Nice people there. Took me out. I always remember the dinner we had. That was a great dinner. They took me to a wonderful restaurant that night. I so appreciate that when you're out at a different part of the world and the folks, will take you somewhere that's like, here, we want to show you what this place is all about, and it's memories. It'll stick with me forever. That's my impression of that part of the world. And I had a new impression of the Netherlands and what a great place it is. It's kind of my favorite place in Europe, I think, for many different reasons, but it's just a great quality of life there is what it comes down to, so just a nice place to hang out for a few days. And not just Amsterdam, which is a great city, but once you get out of the big cities and go to some of the smaller places, it's pretty special. When blocking a Floyd Rose for dive only, is it important for the bridge plate to be completely parallel with the body? It satisfies my desire for things to be symmetrical or whatever. I don't know. But I don't know that it's necessary. It's completely parallel with the body. I don't know if you've noticed a difference or not. Maybe the knife edge would like it better if it wasn't at some weird angle against the post, sitting, if it was more straight, but maybe not. I don't know. It's a good question for somebody like Sir. I would ask a tech that you trust. I would probably set it up to be straight as possible. Pete Thorn's ST says, early 90s Explorer with dirty fingers sounds wicked. See, I could see that. Maybe I was just thinking like the Explorer I have is, that black, I have a black, like sort of Explorer standard or whatever, and it's got hot Alnico 5 pickups in it right now, and it sounds muddy. And I think maybe for hot pickups, maybe I was thinking of putting EMGs in it or something, actually, like maybe the Hetfield set and having one guitar around that just a completely different thing for videos and things, because it's not generally what I do. But a hot, he's probably got ceramic magnet in his set or something. I don't know. I know he's got a signature EMG set, so I thought maybe I would just try that, just different sound, the ceramic magnet has always got, a brighter, crisper thing. Does roasting maple change the tone, says Richard? Maybe. I don't know. Hard to say, right? You'd have to, how would you quantify, you'd have to do it on a guitar that wasn't roasted and then roast it and put it back together and then like record it both ways and all that. I have guitars with various roasted, like roasted maple neck. I have one, my white Sir Classic has a roasted alder body as well as a roasted neck, and it sure sounds great. The biggest change I notice is the stability of the neck on all my roasted guitars seems to be really good. Like seems to be really consistently, not a hell of a lot of need for truss rod adjustments and stuff like that. The necks stay straight, they don't twist, and they don't require a lot of maintenance when it comes to truss rod adjustments. Less, that's what I found. Ethan Rick says he's still practicing every day to keep chops up, but left a lot of song ideas unfinished. Gotta finish them up. It's cool you're working on your playing. It's hard to do both, I know. I pick up the guitar to practice and I end up writing something, and then I don't practice, but I wrote something. Always happens, to be honest. Generally, if I'm playing, I'm writing. I'm not practicing these days, to be honest. And I'd like to kind of have a focused hour or two of practice every day, or hour and a half, even. Just yeah. What do I think about the TC Plethora? Says Mike. Haven't even checked it out, to be honest. So I don't no vibe on it. Cool idea in theory. I think it's like their tone. What do they call it? Tone print in a multi effect, right? So probably cool because I like some of those pedals, the Corona Chorus and the delay and the flashback delay. It's good stuff. Yeah. Vincent says, just as a follow-up, that it feels wrong to be enjoying things, not depressed or anything, just like drained by all of this. I get that. I know it's tough. Everybody deals with it in a different way too, Vincent. It's like, and Lauren saying, music's the way out of this thing. It's purely human and universal. I agree with that. It's hard, man. I mean, there's been some tough times in this world. Did you ever see that movie? What's it called? God, what was the movie about the concentration camp and the guy and his son is in there with him and he just makes it all a game so that his son forgets. It's called It's a Wonderful Life or something. That was such a great movie. Like the perspective of that movie of how shit things could be. And this guy finds the way to find his, I don't know how realistic it is, but it was a nice sentiment anyway. Like, because, as it, how you go through those years and things are bad. And then like, you're like, God, I don't know, man. Like, and then like things can get way worse than that. You don't realize until it happens, like whatever, there's a death in the family or something happens. It recalibrates maybe before you were just stressed because you lost a job or something. And then something way worse happens. And so there's always different levels and anyways, it can always be worse, I think. And so the thing to remember is like, it's okay to make yourself feel okay in times of like allow yourself the freedom to have the escape and stuff, and don't feel guilty about it, because like I said earlier, like what good are you if you are so bummed that it ends up affecting you have to be careful. Like mental health is important, like, I mean, you have to constantly be cognizant and check yourself, like, am I okay? I think it's a good thing for people to do. It's not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength, like to be focused on like your how could I grow and improve, and then like how am I doing like on a daily basis? Am I you know what I mean? Because it's like I think those things where you slip down like when you say I'm not depressed, it's like, well, you might be, and that's okay. And it's not it's not a lot of people get depressed, and it's like it's good to go, well, am I, like, what are some of the classic symptoms of depression? Am I sleeping more? Am I not as interested in things that I used to enjoy? There's a couple, right? And if you're like, yeah, I am actually, it's like, well, maybe this is what I'm, like, a low level kind of depression, and then doing things to mitigate that, right? Always checking. I don't know, it's just my opinion. It's good to keep a handle on those things, and always be like, am I all right? Am I drinking too much? Well, let's see. I saw the great comedian once. She was talking about what her joke was like. What if when you go to the doctor and they ask you, like, so how many alcoholic drinks each week would you have? What if you were just honest about that question? And she says, like, 38. You got to look at that, right, and go like, yeah, I got to be honest with myself. That's maybe I should dial it back a little bit or whatever. I'm not saying I drink 38 drinks a week, but I thought it was funny. Anyways, definitely drinking too much, says Ethan. Drinking too much, says my niece. Yeah. Anyways, just try and keep a handle on it. I eat cannabis daily, says 427 cubes. It's different for everybody. Whatever works. Whatever works. Just don't slip down that hole. Primo Levi's book, The Periodic Table, tells about the good days in a Nazi concentration camp. What an amazing sounding book that must be. God, I would love to. I mean, that kind of perspective. It's those people, you guys know people that went through World War II. I mean, I've met all kinds of people that, that I still, they're getting pretty old now, but I mean, folks that went through the wars. Matter of fact, Britt, you guys know Britt. Her I don't even know if I should share this, but it's personal family kind of stuff, but I'm just gonna anyway, because it's fascinating to me. But her grandmother was actually in Hiroshima. She's that old, she's getting close to 90, and so she was a very, very young girl when that happened. And so you just think like, well, there's not many people you meet that can relate to like what that was like as a little kid, and then like coming out of that, like what was your life like what happened? So I mean, these stories are fascinating. Like the struggles. Like we think it's, this is the part of all the stuff now that people are going through. Like, yeah, it's been a sacrifice, it's been tough, it's a tough time, but there's levels of tough, and then there's a level of tough of having a atomic weapon dropped on your city, and it's not funny, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's a whole, I shouldn't laugh, but I'm using it as a perspective of like, holy, there's a level of tough. Like, what did you have to go through in your life to get to the point where you survived and like, had kids, and like, how do you come out of that? So these things are fascinating to me, but that book sounds really interesting. Like, I'd like to read that book. I just like human stories and like talking to people about, I think maybe that's the problem with I don't want to get too into this because this is a guitar show, not too political, but the human stories are always what's amazing. I watched, I'll bring it around to this. I finished The Americans last night. It was a great TV show. You guys ever watch The Americans? About this family of Russian spies that lives in DC in the 80s. And the great thing about TV these days that's so awesome is that you can develop characters over 6 seasons, and you feel like I've been watching that show. I don't know originally when it came out, but maybe 2014, something like that. I've been watching it for so many years, and then the couple seasons came out and I didn't watch them. And so I just finished it and I kind of binged the last couple seasons. It's such a great story because it's so human, like, I don't want to spoil it if you haven't watched it, to tell you what happens. But the end is, it's, it's heavy, and it's so human, and you feel like these people, and it's like I love when you can have these stories that aren't all, it's not all good and bad. It's like, and not everybody's all like, it's not like the hero and the antagonist or whatever. It's like there's this mixture of, because that's real life where people are good and bad all mixed together, and I don't know, it's fascinating. That was a great show. If you haven't seen The Americans, check it out. I love kind of spy stuff and everything, but it was just the human, element of it was so cool. Such a great story. Anyways, okay. Pete Thorn, could you please explain why you chose Alnico 4 on the bridge and Alnico 5 on the neck of the Thornbuckers? Yeah. You're saying you imagine the other way around would be more normal. Well, the reason is because Alnico 5 has more top end, really. It also gives you more bass, but you can, if you don't wind the pickup too hot, it doesn't get too loud and bassy, I find. So if you got a real low wind Alnico 5, which is kind of to me, what I think of as a T-top or a sort of mid 60s Gibson pickup, a lot of those can sound really cool. Like when you think of like pickups that were probably in like Angus Young's guitars or whatever, like whatever, the short magnet PAF with not, they're not real hot. Like the ones in my 335, people love the sound of that guitar. Real low wind. I mean, the pickups are like 7.3 or 4K, something like that. Low wind humbuckers, Alnico 5s, and they got a bark and a clarity to them that's really cool. So in the neck with the Thornbucker, it's got a clarity to it and a top end clarity. Alnico 4 gives you a little bit less output, but it also evens out the frequency response, where you get a little less treble, that's for sure. Also a little less bass, but so it's more mid-tone. So in the bridge, it gives you this clarity and a little bit sweeter top end. I don't want to say it's not clear, because it ain't. It's like, but you can dial a little bit more treble into your sound. If you got an Alnico 5, like for instance, an SSV sounds a little more sizzly and cutting. And so on the high string, it's got a little bit more of a, I don't want to say it's unpleasant, because it could be the right thing for certain guitar sounds, but the Alnico 4 is a little sweeter up on the high notes on the top string. So on the bridge pickup, that can be a good thing, because you don't really need, like, even in a Les Paul or whatever on the bridge pickup, you don't need a hell of a lot of treble. Like just the pickup being there is like, you can have a pretty warm pickup on a Les Paul or in a bridge humbucker on a Strat. It can be a pretty warm pickup in the bridge. It's the neck position that becomes, so that's why the Alnico 5 in the neck, because it gives you a little bit more of that clarity with the 5. So anyways, yeah. What else we got here? Hope that makes sense. Just looking for some more questions. Let's see. You guys are talking amongst yourselves, so but that's good. I like that. It's good. My father-in-law was in World War II. He's 100 years old. His my knees hurt. Yeah, folks are getting pretty up there. If they were old enough to be in the war, for sure. My granddad served during World War II, but he wasn't ever actively deployed or anything like that. And then my other grandfather, because my other granddad was born in 1895, so he was like a lot older than my grandmother, 17 or 18 years older than my grandmother, and he died in 1986 or 86, I think, at the age of 90. But he was in World War I, and he lied to get in. He was like 16 when he got in. And, the interesting thing about World War I and the stories that he told me, some of the things these people can teach you, that there was no news back then, and they didn't have a perspective on war and what it meant, because all our perspective came from the 20th century. And, when movies came out, and people used to go to the movie theaters to watch the news, right? And then television comes out in the 50s on a regular, big scale. And all of a sudden you got news and stuff, right? And we learned, but nobody really knew what the hell was going on other than, through newspapers or whatever, like with war. And there hadn't been a big world war, right? So World War I happens, and he told me, I remember him saying that they made it seem like it was going to be this great adventure, like see the world, like get a uniform and a gun, and like it's going to be really exciting. And when you're like 15 or 16, you're like, oh, that sounds amazing, right? Because there was no perspective on what that meant. And the next thing you know, you're in one of those friggin' trenches, like you see, and there's disease, and like it's the winter, and it's like what was that movie that came out 1917 or 1917, the one that just came out, like that was a great movie where it was kind of shot in real time, of a story of two guys that have got to go behind the lines and stuff to get a message to like, great movie. But anyways, all of a sudden you're in that situation where you're like, this isn't what I thought was going to happen. And it's like, and that was kind of my granddad's recount. He actually got shot in the war. I wonder I'm even here because anyway, he was in World War I, but he made it and ended up emigrating he was from UK, and then he ended up emigrating to Canada. So that's that story. But he was born in 1895. Kind of crazy. But anyways, oh wow, Ethan says my grandfather was at Normandy on D-Day. Wow, he served on one of those boats. Crazy, man. Wild, crazy. Anyways, okay. More guitar stuff. Pete, do you know all the specific mods to the Plexis that were done, and can you email them to me? No. I'm just kidding, but no, I can't. I couldn't if I know a lot of them, but I mean, there's a whole bunch. So even if you just take one of the modders, like somebody like Jose, if it's just through talking to Friedman recently and doing the video I made and stuff, and then other things that have come out, he's been looking at a lot of those amps recently and kind of servicing a lot of the classic ones, like John Sykes, and James Hetfield has one at his shop now, as well as the Vi ones and everything. So he's seen tons of them. And looking at all the different things that were done, it's pretty interesting. There's so many different little things. You'd have to ask him. That'd be a question for him, to all the different things. But I can kind of summarize a couple things for you. Okay. The one thing that Jose used to do, the main thing, is a gain stage in front of a Plexi. So that would be a tube added. And then he would either use one side of that tube or both sides of that tube in parallel to then kick the first stage of the amplifier. So that's the main thing. Now, all the little variations in how he did that, like using a cap to ground on the tube and all these different shit that I don't really understand, would affect the sound of that input stage. But he used to do certain things that would limit the high end of that stage, so it wasn't too open and wild. And I've heard the sound of both sides paralleled, as well as one side only working of that tube now kicking the front end. I've heard the different, and what that sounds like, and I have my own sort of feelings on that. So what are some of the other things he used to do? So he used to do a master volume on some amps, or on all of his amps. I think he would do master, but he would either use the Zener limiters on the master or not. So a lot of the amps just had the master, but no Zener. And that's a certain type of like diode clipping, essentially. It was like a limiter, really, and it would limit the signal. And it kind of had this sound that, like Dave said in the video that we made, that if you got the Zener, it would sound a little bit more metal, a little bit more like compressed and aggressive and saturated sounding. It could be a little bit more open and plexi-ish without that. And then also the master could be used either pre or post EQ. So just where in the circuit that master volume worked. And he would put a push-pull on it to work. It was real primitive the way it's designed, and there's all this crosstalk and some bleed coming through, especially when it's set pre-EQ. That's kind of weird, but if you've got it up at anything close to decent volume, you don't hear that. It's just this bleed. Anyway, doesn't matter. That's a silly little details. But really, so you're looking at a couple different things. The tube in front with either one stage or both stages. Then the master volume, either pre-EQ or post-EQ, and either with the Zener limiter or without. That kind of summarizes it, actually. And then he would do other things like put slave outs and sometimes change where the negative feedback on the... I sound like I know what I'm talking about, don't I? I really don't. But the negative feedback, he would move to sometimes the, what was it, 100K or whatever on the 4-ohm tap or whatever the hell, and I hear these guys say these things, and I just pick up little bits of it. Yeah, I do know what some of it sounds like. I know what the single stage as opposed to both stage of the tube sound like pushing. the front end, and I know what the Zeners sound like, and I know what the master sounds like pre and post. I have that all in my head, what I like and what I would use the things for different things. So, how is your signature Sur amp different than a classic Marshall amp? Well, first of all, the clean channel is quite Fender. So, PT100 or on the PT15, it's more like the Bella. So there's the two different cleans, which are both going to be a little bit more in the American tone camp. The PT100 is a bit more typically super reverb meets twin reverb. It's somewhere in the middle of those two circuits. And then the PT15 is a bit more like a modded kind of situation, a little bit of a different thing. The 100 is a little more sparkly and got that super reverb kind of thing going on. And then the 15 has a little bit more of a bold kind of a little bit more mids and stuff in it in the clean. And then with the distortion sound, it's really just idealized Marshall. So it's different from a classic Marshall in that it's just components and like tuning it in to sound, so a little bit less bass in the front end or a little bit more here, a little bit more there, like different things. And that's really just John knowing. I don't know exactly like what's going on. I just know if I like it or not. And then I ask for different things. And so the process I always use, it's like if you go to the eye doctor and they put those thing in front of your face and then they flip the lenses and go, is this better or is this better? Is this better or is this better? Okay. And then okay, is this better or this better? and that's what working with John is like on an amp, where he's like, do you like this or this? He's going to change this little thing. What sounds better? And I'm like, I think show me one more time. And he'll go back and forth and add a cap in or take it out. And it's like that. And you just dial it in, and it ends up being a variation of because everything's a variation on, there's not that many different circuits out there. I mean, Marshall started out being a British Fender, a 59 basement circuit, was all a JTM 45 was. It's just they couldn't get Fenders that readily over in the UK, and people wanted those amps, and they're like, well, let's make an amp here. There seems to be a demand for them. We'll just copy this one from over there. And so they copied the 59 Bassman, but make it, mainly in a head. I mean, they made the Bluesbreaker combo, but JTM 45 combo, but mainly in a head with a separate speaker cabinet for whatever reason. I don't know why that they decided to do that, but that's what they did. And then the component variations and differences are just what was available in England at the time. So, let's do it with KT66 tubes. We can get those from GEC or whatever. We can't get those, 5881s from overseas. So we'll use what we got over here, and just lo and behold, you end up with a JTM 45, and then it's just tweaks from there, isn't it? So everything's just a variation on. Fender kind of started it all, I guess. Which was really coming right. All those designs kind of the RCA tube amp handbook or something. The simple amplifier designs was like a book that was out right in the 40s. If somebody probably knows out there, but the 40s or 50s was like RCA had this tube manual that was like, here's the basics of amplifier circuits, and then Fender took that and made some amps and tweaked from here and there. So that was a long answer to that question. How is my signature amps different than a Marshall? But that's the family tree. Brett says, I think you should do more Pete and Britt videos. Yeah, I'd like to get her to play drums on something soon. Any chance that Neely Brosh would be your guest soon? I'd like to have her on for sure. She's a great guitar player. I would like that. I can ask. Do you use the Boss Waza tube amp expander? Not right now. I have my main load boxes here are the aux and a Sur reactive load and a Fryette power station. So that's what I have over here. Actually, all on 3 sends on my Ampete output. So my amp switcher that's up there in the rack, up there in the top, there it is right there. 1 goes to the Sur reactive load, 2 goes to the aux, 3 goes to the power station. The power station then has a speaker send going out to a cabinet. This is a Marshall cabinet. It's an old 70s one that I've got wired up in the other room right now. So that's my 3 outputs. So I can do 2 different load boxes, or I can use the Fryette for load only if I want. But generally speaking, I'm actually got the Fryette bypassed, and I just run right through to that cabinet. If it's a real loud amp, sometimes I'll engage the the load on the Fryette, and then balance it out with the to load and reamp, right? So I have options there. That's what I'm using right now. As Has anybody tried the Tim Pierce courses? I'm afraid to buy without knowing how it is. Well, I think you can just get a month. I mean, like, I think it's $13 or something a month. Just take the plunge for 1 month and try it. Then you get access to all the lessons and you can see what you think. I've been meaning to do it forever. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll do that today. Sign up for Tim's studio guitar masterclass. I'd love to do it. It's not going to not be good. I guarantee it's going to be worth the money. Think about what you spend on a private lesson these days. You know, I mean, it's, you know, I've spent as much as $300 on a private guitar lesson for an hour with different people, you know, spending $13 to, you'll know within a month. And I'm sure you'll learn something no matter what, even if you decide to not continue. So, anyways, we got 382 people online. Thanks for being here, folks. Anyone got experience with low tunings like drop C and whatnot? I like how bands like Big Wreck use those tunings, but setup wise, I'm not 100% sure what's best. I don't know what Ian does as far as strings go and stuff on the guitars. When I'm playing in really low tunings these days, I tend to play my baritone, but I have my EVH Wolfgang set up in drop C sharp. I mean, it's got the D tune on it, so I can knock it up to standard, you know, pitch or whatever. It'd be the E flat tuning, I guess. I keep a couple guitars. One of my PT signatures, the black one, and the Wolfgang are in E flat, and the Wolf I can drop to drop C sharp with the bridge is not floating and the D tuna. So that's real easy. So that's the lowest tuned standard guitar I have in here. And then if I want to get a little bit lower than that, I have my baritone tuned to B actually. And that's how I do that. So Pete, tell us about a time you made a fool of yourself on stage. Okay. I tripped over a monitor cable once. A stage dived into an empty dance floor. That's rough. That's Fui Manchu. So I learned the hard way to wrap my cable around the amp as well as the guitar strap when I was 14 years old, and I was playing at my junior high school, and I went to take my big guitar solo on a song, and I walked just a little too far from the amp, and the cable pulled out of the amp right as I got to the first note of the solo. So that sucked. But I learned, can't just have the cable go through the strap on the guitar. You also got to wrap it through the handle or something around the amp. Now, I probably would have just yanked the amp head right off the cabinet. So I also learned, make sure you got a long enough cable, and your damn amp doesn't have to be so far away. You don't have to put it so far to the back of the stage. As a matter of fact, it's a little better if it's closer to you. So one thing that I learned from stuff like that happening was you don't always have to set up super wide and far apart from one another just because you're on a big stage, right? The Beatles never did it. They set up tight. The Beatles always were set up just the same way that they did in the Cavern Club, even when they were playing Shea Stadium. Right? Think about it. The amps were right beside one another and the drums in the middle, and they set up close because it was like they don't want to be. I mean, imagine they probably couldn't even hear the damn drums otherwise because there was no monitoring. But I liked when bands set up tight, not all super far apart just because they can, But that's okay. If you ever make that mistake of practicing close to one another and then you get on a big stage and everybody's set up far apart, you play like that for the first time without ever rehearsing like that, you feel like a fish out of water because it's like, well, this sounds completely different and I can't hear people as well. And I'm relying on the monitor now. I need more hi-hat. I can't hear the damn drummer that I'm able to hear perfectly in rehearsal. So all those things. And that was one of those times where I was like, I'm too damn far away from my amp and cabinet. And I ended up pulling the cable right out of the amp. So that sucked. But you learn. I remember it. I think I had red pants on. I remember that. Bright red pants. Trying to look cool. Didn't look so cool when I pulled that cord out. Did I? Oh, God. Feels like I've lived 50 lives sometimes. Lucas K says, I'm looking for a new reverb pedal. Joined a post-rock band, and my spring reverb is not enough for that job. Any recommendations? Yvette Young reminded me about the Maris Mercury 7, which is killer for modern kind of, it was just like inspired by Blade Runner. The soundtrack to Blade Runner. It's just epic long tail reverbs. It'll also do smaller hall type stuff, but it's really cool. Look for the Mercury 7. What else? There's so many great ones, man. Honestly, a Big Sky, or I use the H9 right now and I use the black hole reverb for a lot of the kind of epic sounding reverbs, And it's got a ton of ambience. I use the black hole algorithm generally. The Earth one is really nice for a natural kind of warm, roomy thing that's not super long. I did a neat tone print for the Hall of Fame. If anybody's got one of those, that is a 6-second, quite ambient reverb, but not crazy. That 6 seconds is pretty damn long, but it's great for if you keep the mix low, and you have it kind of mixed down to your sound. If you're doing some pretty clean stuff or whatever, and just want that nice, what I'm talking about. It's got some modulation in it. It's that kind of thing. And then if you stand on the switch, how they have that switch that's like a pressure sensitive on the Hall of Fame 2, it tails out to 20 seconds. So check that out if you got a Hall of Fame, and it's pretty nice for doing like you can hit a chord or a note and just tail it out, and it infinitely repeats basically. And then when you take your foot off, it goes back to 6 seconds. So that's kind of a fun one. I have a Hall of Fame x4 here, and I need to actually download my own because I haven't since I did it. I haven't downloaded it. I made it at GetCon with Tor when he was still at TC. Tall Person's up in the top chat, and he says. Super chat. He says, enjoy a cider or coffee on me. Thanks, dude. Have a great week. This is a great channel, even for we jazz guys. Thanks, man. God, can I take guitar lessons from you? Teach me just for like 6 months. So I should stop playing rock guitar, just play nothing but jazz guitar. Treat me like I'm 4 and go right from the beginning. Please. Because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, honestly. But thanks, man. I appreciate that. I will. I'll have a cider later. Honestly, I went out last night. My old local when I lived in Studio City, California, was the Laurel Tavern, which is a terrific little, just simple bar, and it's a nice vibe. So some of you may have seen me there because I would go there quite a bit. But they opened for the first time on the weekend. They got a new beer garden outside, which is nice because you can socially distant. But the only problem I had is inside. It was a lot of people, and I went there and I kind of stood by the door. There's a lot of folks without the masks and a lot of people inside, like at the bar and stuff. And I was just kind of like, don't feel comfortable. I like it. I'll go, but I want to like hang out. I want to, so the beer garden outside there was nice, but I didn't, it was busy at the bar and there was a ton of people standing at the bar, like not with the mask, not cool with that. So I'll go back during, the week at some point or something and enjoy myself. Just that many people kind of wasn't digging on that. So anyways, your cider, I will partake in that. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Let's see. Harley Hex is in the super top chat. He says, I'm looking at a pedal to thicken the sound of a single guitar, looking for a pedal, kind of torn between chorus or doubler like the Mimic or the 30 millisecond double tracker. All pretty good options. The Mimic was kind of cool. It had a kind of a phasey thing to it, but I might not have been using it right when I tried it. Another way you can thicken the sound in the 30 millisecond double tracker is kind of probably similar to this. I'd have to try them, but one way that I do it in an H9 is I have a delay in it. So if my rig stereo, I'll have a delay in the H9 where one side's 35 milliseconds, the other side's 45, and there's no feedback. So you'll only get one repeat. And I have it mixed real low, so like 15%. And you just bring that into about 15%. And with that 35 and 45 split, it just widens the guitar a little bit. And it's subtle. And you can still use it through a cabinet, and it doesn't sound like, in front of house, like you've got some weird delay going. It doesn't, you don't perceive it as delay or anything like that with those short times. So that's one thing you could do if you have any old, you can probably do it. I mean, I guess with the H, you might need a delay that's fairly controllable. Dual delay, and I think you could probably do it on a DD500 or something like that. Strymon, I don't know if you could do it on a timeline or not exactly. Maybe. But basically, I have one of the H9s with that on quite a bit of the time. If I'm using my stereo PT100 rig, I'd use that quite a bit. And it just, especially in in-ears, it just widens the sound a little bit. It's kind of nice. It's hard for me to say, man. I mean, a chorus is a sound, and then you're going to get that chorus sound, which I don't mind at all. I like chorus, but then it's chorus, If you're just looking for I would probably veer towards the double tracker, the 30 millisecond double tracker, if you just want not an obvious chorusing effect. It'll do that too, I think, but I made a video of that pedal, but it was years ago, so I can't remember exactly what just the subtle effect of it would sound like, you know. Anyway, hope that helps. Down in the bottom of the chat there, I'm really starting to think that EQ pedals are the hidden gems of pedals. I don't know, says Eric. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's a powerful thing. Like, you can dial in a sound. Oh, I wish my Strat didn't sound quite so woofy on the neck pickup. I want to get a bit more clarity. Boom. Just do it. As opposed to trying different pickups and stuff, you just do it, you know. It's amazing, actually, like carving tones when you're trying to, you know, set up a sound and you're like, okay, that's basically the sound, but it's too woolly. You know, it's opposed to changing the overdrive pedal or something. It's just dial it in with the EQ with the exact right sound, and there it is. So it's terrific having a good EQ. Definitely a good thing. Yeah, somebody's saying you did a demo of that. I did a demo of it. Yeah, I can't remember though. It's that long ago that it's like, you know, after you do a certain number of them, it was in, I think I did it in Santa Monica. So that would be pre-2015. Matter of fact, I know that's when it was. So it's getting to be so long ago now. I remember it being really cool. Good sounding pedal. Keeley makes great pedals. They don't really make any bad pedals. You know, you're saying 30 milliseconds awesome. You're making me want to try it again. Maybe I'll get it out today and give it a try, actually. Maybe that's, I don't know, be a cool pedal for my always on pedal in the post path. Oh, I do want to show you guys a cool pedal before I forget. If I can get this up high enough here. Well, I don't need to have the input plugged in, actually. Here it is. Let's set the power. I gotta angle the camera down a little bit. Oh, shit. That's not gonna work. Here. I could do this. I got this week. I bought it off Reverb. Show you how it works. As some of you may know, I have noise problems in this room. So I got one of these, a little Rocktron Hush pedal. So this, for those that have never used the Hush thing, it's a downward expander. So let's take this out of the equation right here. You've got this knob right here, which is the Hush effect. This is not a noise gate. It's a downward expander. So it'll cut as you turn it up, depending on how noisy your signal is, at a certain point, you'll hear the noise just go down, the noise floor. Downward expansion, where it's only limiting the high frequencies, and at the certain frequencies where there's generally a lot of noise, so it drops those down. Then you combine that with this, you can see it chatter a little bit there. So I turn this up, this is a gate. So set about like this with the gate about here and the downward expansion anywhere between noon and 1 o'clock. You can completely kind of remove the noise from a guitar signal. Now, does it affect the tone? Yes, a little bit. On cleaner sounds, you definitely get a little less top end with the downward expander. To the point where I was actually going to make a video about the pedal, and then I thought, and I still might, but I might reframe how I do it. I might do a whole video on noise gates and stuff and show this one as an option, as opposed to I was just going to show this thing as sort of being the be all end all. And then I realized it was actually cutting the high end a little bit. I was like, oh, because when I got it, I thought it was a little more transparent than it is, but it's still great. Like, and for high gain, kind of almost maybe you don't need that, you know, like if you want a little bit smoother top end, I can turn this thing up pretty aggressively. It's just when you get it up past noon, you'll notice it takes a little bit of the chime out of your signal, you know, which it feels a little lossy to me, but I still, for high gain sounds and stuff, if you're trying to quiet down pickups in a noisy, buzzy room, it's pretty great. So not perfect, but really good. So that's a pedal that I got that is a little bit of probably, you know, an always on kind of thing, just in varying amounts. If I want the chime and a real sparkle to be there, I'll probably turn that downward expander almost off and mainly use the gate to just kind of, you know, but the combination of the gate with the downward expansion, that's what the Hush thing is all about. Anybody that's ever tried a decimator, I guess it's one step beyond that, where it's kind of a 4-cable kind of thing, where it works in the effects loop as well on high gain amps, and it'll, you know, from the guitar signal to the loop and kind of quiet noise down. If you're a metal kind of guy, you know, that's what the decimator does. But normally these are things that I would ever use if I was in a quiet room. My room in Santa Monica, for instance, was really quiet. Or, you know, when I made videos at my old apartment in Studio City, it's a bunch of the videos I've done were in that room. the one with the windows, where you'd get daytime to night. And, that place, I didn't have that many problems with noise, but this room's always been noisy, and it's just I think it's power lines and stuff like that. So I have to combat it in different ways. It's not terrible, because I knew that going in here, that it was going to be like that, and I decided to move here anyway, even though it was like that was the one thing where it's like it's a little noisy in this place. But I'm talking about RF getting in the pickups, or EMI or whatever they call it, electromagnetic kind of stuff. Yeah, John McClane says, "Are you the John McClane from Die Hard, dude? You're my hero." No, I'm just kidding. He had a Rocktron Hush rack years ago. It was a great piece, but it ended up going to the Boss NS1, which I liked a bit better. That's a good pedal too. The other one that's good is the Smart Gate from Rocktron, but these are gate devices mainly. Is the NS1 downward expansion? I don't think so. I think it's just a gate, right? Isn't it? Maybe I'm wrong. You can fill me in. I've used that a little bit. But yeah, the rack, I tried recently a rack. It was a Hush 2B rack, and I plugged it in and used it on something because it would happen to be around this building. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That works good. And then I thought, I'll get this pedal. It was cheap. It's used, $65. I thought, I'll give it a try. The Juggernaut V2 says, I'd love to see a gate video. Thanks. Yeah, I could do one. I have a few here. I mean, I have the other one that I used a lot for a long time is the Sentry pedal from TC. So this is the other one that I've used on, and when I get a real noisy situation going in here where it's like high gain or something, I've used this for a couple of years now, and it works good. And I still quite like it actually for like, I don't know, I might still use this sometimes. Maybe let's try them. Maybe I need to experiment with having them all plugged in line, turn them on and off, and the Sentry, the Smart Gate, and the guitar silencer, because I have those three here. Those are the three I have. I think I have a Pigtronics one here too. Thanks, the Juggernaut, for doing the top chat up there. Appreciate that. It's 1:19. I don't know. Are you guys bored yet? I'll keep going for a few more minutes. Somebody else saying they'd love to see it with the decimator. I don't have a decimator, but I should get one. Maybe, make a video. Decimator works well on 5153. Does the Sentry come with the plethora? I don't know. It's a good question. I wonder if you could load I would assume you could probably load the Sentry into the plethora. Is the Sentry a noise gate or a suppressor? I think the Sentry is just... Sorry, I got kind of dark in here for the video. Take a look here. There's a tone print setting on it. I don't know that it has. It's got a hiss setting. Gate, tone print, and hiss. Maybe it's got a downward expansion setting on it. I always use it on the gate setting, but it's also got on the little mini toggle there at the top. It's got a hiss setting. Maybe I need to investigate that and see if that's downward expansion. It has an effects loop built in it too. This is a good gate. I mean, I've used it for a number of years and quite like it. So, let's see. Have you ever tried a really cheap pedal that sounds ridiculously good to you? The Dano ones are good. I mean, I remember trying what's it called? The $1 billion drive or something. That was really inexpensive. That was the whole deal, it was like inexpensive, and they called it the $1 billion. That was a really good pedal. It's another cheap one. I've got a Moore, or Newer, which is Moore, I think, gate in one loop on my pedal board, and just the loop for my Cloney drive, my Archer. And I bought that for like $20. I was in a guitar store in Japan. They had one. I was like, I'll try that. It's a mini. It'll fit like on my board, and it works fine. Just for a simple gate. It's a one knob gate. It's another cheap pedal. Cheap. I got any cheap ones on my board right now? Not really. I mean, I got Phase 95. That's not expensive. Or the Wampler Mini Ego Comp has been the one that's on my board. I don't think they're especially expensive. I've got the Mini Dunlop Wah Crybaby. That's not expensive, I don't think. So those are cool. Other like ridiculously cheap. What was that Digitech that came out that was like a tube screamer? That always sounded pretty good in the 90s. I mean, this pedal was $65. I just bought that, right? So, what was that thing called? You guys know what I'm talking about. It was like an inexpensive tube screamer. Also, the grunge pedal was pretty cool. That was cheap. Digitech grunge. Have you tried the Radial Guitar SGI, which converts guitar or pedal to balanced amp signals? I haven't, not that particular, but Radial makes great stuff for guitar players. I mean, the JDI, is that what you mean? SGI, I haven't heard of that. Where you can split out to, you see those in a lot of studios where it'll split out to like a whole bunch of different, amps, so you could send to like 7 different amps or something out of one of those JDI things, I think that's what it's called. I might have the name. Guys, it's yellow and it's a single rack space and it splits to 7 different amps if you want. Ibanez Tube Screamer TS808 Stealth Parrot says he's underwhelmed with it. Max, the guys that did the original Maxon, I guess the original designer has a new pedal out and they've asked me if I want to demo it. Another Tube Screamer. But I guess this guy who the original designer went through and looked at a bunch of the old ones and figured out what made some sound different. And there's like one type of chip or something. I don't know. They sourced a bunch of them and they made a pedal out of it. That's the story. I think you're thinking about the Sound Tank Ibanez series. I had one. No, that's not. I was thinking about the Digitech or, the grunge pedal. Remember that series? That's the one I was thinking of. But not to say that Sound Tanks were good. They were. And the delay was great. And the TS pedal was great. The can't remember what they called the Sound Tank one, TS7 or something like that. I think that was good. And I had one of the delays, and it was a cheapo delay. Remember the Ibanez that with the push button knobs on them that you could lock? That was a great feature where like you'd push the button, the knob would pop out, and then you could turn it and adjust it, and then push it back in, and then it wouldn't get moved. I thought those were cool. I had an Ibanez pedal like that. The Bad Monkey, says Chris Cam. That's right. That's the cheap TS style Digitech one. And then Derek Chapman saying Digitech Hardwire. That's a different series, much later. Those weren't out that long ago. They still make those, I think, but those are good pedals too. I know Friedman, really big fan of those. Chris Cam says Tone Lock. That was the Ibanez. Yeah, so many pedals. Ibanez DE7. I think that's the Tone Lock, right? Anthony Murphy's mentioning that. And there was a grunge pedal made in the mid-90s. Yes, that's right. That's the one I'm talking about. It was really unremarkable, at least to my ears. I remember quite liking it, thinking it was cool. This is a fuzz, kind of, but I thought it was neat. But who knows? I might listen to it now and go, well, that's boring. There's been so many pedals come out, Phil X used the Bad Monkey in a bunch of Fred Americana videos. Yeah. Cool pedal. Tube Screamer. How about an Arian stereo chorus? Yeah, great. I have one. I have one of the, the Landau ones, the ill-fated Landau one. Great pedal, though. Totally cool sounding pedal, the Arian stereo chorus. Really good. The Bonsai from JHS, says L. Scott Music. Yeah, that's the multi-screamer pedal, which I quite like. I think that's a good pedal. I was actually thinking about putting that on my board as a lead, just for try something else, a lead boost. The Bonsai, instead of maybe my Klon style for a while, just to try something different. Another great tube screamer style was the what's the Precision Drive from Horizon? It's a really good pedal. It's got a low cut on it, that you could vary. So that's nice. Misha's company. I quite like that. And I think it was basically kind of a screamer style drive, but with the low cut. So for metal guys, nice. How about A Million Vacations by Max Webster, says True Tech. A million vacations is what you got in mind. I can't wait to get away. I know what you're talking about. Sure I do. I have a Hardwire Lexicon Reverb RV7, pretty rich sounds. Yeah, they're good. Lukather was using them because Friedman did his board and recommended them. So he had the delay and the Hardwire stuff on his board. It's good pedals. Good cheap pedals. BBE Green Screamer. BBE, of course, makers of the classic, the wah that Vertex took and resold. But yeah, it's a great sounding wah pedal. Really, really good, that BBE, the vintage one. And yeah, definitely. DoD death metal, Ethan Ricks says, has a cult following among electronic musicians, used like a bit crusher. That's cool. Interesting. Have I ever played a Revstar guitar? I have, actually. I'm friends with the Line 6 folks, which is Yamaha now, and they actually asked me to come and come and sample a bunch of them and try them out at their. I'm a Sir guy, obviously, and I have my own signature model, so it's like I can't do that officially and all that. But they I was friends with, like I say, with same artist relations people and stuff. So they said, could you just stop by and see these guitars, tell us what you think? And they had very specific questions, and they make nice guitars, the Revstars. And so they asked me to look at a bunch of them and stuff. And I looked at them, talking about the bridges and the pickups and things like that, just as on a friendly basis. Yeah. What else? Dano Cool Cat Fuzz says, Paul Ewing of Stompbox Steels. You must know. You got a site called Stompbox Steels. I think you're the right guy to ask. It got yanked when Frantone sued Dano for patent protection. Really? $30 new. They now go for over $200. Really? Wow. Dano Cool Cat Fuzz. Wow. Isn't that funny? You're crazy. My current favorite solo is Gary Moore's solo in Black Rose by Thin Lizzy. I'll go listen to that after. I'm going to jet pretty soon, get some work done. It's 1:30. So, how long have I been going? Oh, I have been going for a long time. 11:20, 11:15, 11:20 till 12. I've been going 2 hours. I should split, you guys. I lost track of time. Anyways, I'm going to go listen to Black Rose solo now. Just have a listen. All right. The Polaron Reverb, says Stephen Douglas. Isn't that the Digitech, I think? Chris Cam wants thoughts on the Comic Concord. Amazing. Mine's right there. You can barely see it. It's right there in the rack. But it's I used it recently, and it sounds so good. It's kind of better sounding than a Marshall, like a Plexi in a way, or like not better, but it's richer. If you put it on an amp switcher, say with my 72 Marshall back there, and I went back and forth, you'd hear what I was talking about. It just has this, like, really, if you want a great new amp that captures that vibe, but it's its own thing, it's a great way to go. It's got this rich mid-range that's just a little bit more, and I don't mean in like it's not as raw way. I mean, it's just rich in the mids, and not quite as, it just sounds a bit more refined, but still absolutely rocking 68 Plexi or something. It's its own EL34. It's a really great sounding amp. It's its own vibe. I should use it more because it's, every time I plug into it, I'm like, God, it sounds good. It's denser sounding than my Marshall, which when you go back and forth, I sold one of them to Lyle Workman, who plays guitar with Beck and Sting and does sessions. He does all the music from 40-Year-Old Virgin and all those movies that were made by those guys. He mainly does, scoring and stuff now, but he's a terrific guitar player. We did a Tim and Pete show with him. But anyway, he bought my original Concord, and I kept this one because this one, they serial numbered Pete on it. So that's why I've got the black one that I have here, which is actually my second one. But I kind of wish I had the original one that I bought first, but I sold it to Lyle. Anyway, I know it went to a great home, and he's a guy that really appreciates old Marshalls. And he used to actually show me some pictures of playing it with Sting and stuff when he was playing guitar with him. And he would have the 50-watt Plexi, and then that one have the two running at the same time. I don't know if you had them panned with some effects or what, but he thought it's different enough than the Marshall that I can justify getting it, and yet it sounds similar enough that it's right in my wheelhouse, So that's why he got it from me. And that's the way I would describe it. It's similar to a 50-watt Marshall, but enough of its own thing going on that it's a little like in every sense. I'll still use the Marshall for, It's a great amp to go to. It's a classic sound. But every time I plug in the Comet and then I A/B them, because that's easy to do on a switcher, you're like, God, it maybe sounds a little better than the Marshall, than any Marshall that I, it's just really good sounding. So, and it's like the tone. I don't know. I could talk about this shit forever. Sorry. You guys are great. Thanks for being here, Ben Coombs. We didn't talk at all, but thanks, buddy, for being here as always. Ben Coombs has got his show. Make sure you go check it out. And Peter Evans is up there in the top chat. He says, always the consummate Sunday host. Thanks, dude. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for doing the super chat. I'll go get a cider on you. Somebody's asking about Sound City. I don't know if you're asking about the movie. You just said Sound City, the movie or the amps. BB said he was the guy. Watched the video of Gary Moore playing with BB. I'd like to see that. BB King. I want to go listen to that Thin Lizzy solo that the other fellow was mentioning. Harley Hex says, thanks for a great live stream. Thank you, man. Thanks for being here. Thank you, guys. I get some more. Eternalism's asking, can you rewind the stream? Yeah, it just uploads to YouTube, and then you can play the whole thing again. Find if there was something that you missed that you wanted to see what we were talking about. Anthony says, I want a simplifier. Great hang. Love the gear videos this week. Thanks, man. Tall person says, have a great week. You too, dude. Have a great week. And John is asking if I get to keep the pedals I try or send them back. It depends on the video. It just depends. You make every video is an arrangement with the manufacturer. Everyone's different. So you're a good man. Pete Thorn says, John. Thanks. Appreciate that. You guys are the best. I'll see you next Sunday. And yeah, more. I was going to say more guests probably coming soon. I don't have anybody lined up, but I will. I'll ask a few friends and stuff and see. It's always been really fun. I loved having Yvette last week. That was awesome. She was a delight, absolutely a delight. And if you haven't checked out her record, make sure you listen to her record. It's awesome. The new Covet record. If you're looking for some good new guitar music and some beautiful guitar tones, as well as incredible playing. More guests coming soon. All that good stuff. Have a great week.